Well, hello there, Chad Weber here. I want to talk to you today about something that I think everybody here can empathize with. Something that probably has driven you absolutely up the wall a thousand times in even just the past year or 2 years, and that is the topic of overwhelm. All right, so you're probably checking out your Facebook feed. You see all these new and exciting technologies and marketing strategies. You jump on webinars, you watch YouTube videos, not unlike this one, and you're constantly learning about all these new and cool and exciting ways that you could be generating leads, or even how you could be closing more leads, or I'm sorry, closing more loans with the leads you already have coming in, and boost your conversion rate, and how to utilize blogs properly, and all this other cool stuff. But the problem is you already have so much going on. You already got all these cool ideas inside your head, and you know some things that you really want to be doing, plus all these other things that you want to learn about, so that you can know if you should be doing them or not. But there's just simply not enough time, right? And things generally don't get better as you go along, despite the fact that we often tell ourselves that, hey, once I get to this point or to that point, then I'll circle back and I'll reassess this or reassess that. But it never, ever, ever, ever works out that way, does it? Instead, you just end up getting busier and busier, even though that may seem almost impossible given the limitations of the space-time continuum. How could I possibly be busier when I was already at maximum levels of busyness? So it eventually leads to overwhelm and then eventually burnout. Sometimes that burnout is temporary, sometimes it's very long term. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you a really neat trick to absolutely overcome that almost instantly. Now, it will take some effort. I'm going to be honest with you there. It will take some effort. You're going to have to sit down and address some of these things. But when you see what I have to show you today, and when you implement it, you're going to be blown away. You're going to wish you'd done this a long time ago. So give me just 1 second here, and I'm going to switch away from, actually, you know what, I'm not going to switch away. Let's start off by looking at this image and why I have it on the screen. So what I want you to do is just imagine that each one of these little graphics here, each one of these little small images is a marketing task. So let's say this is attention you need to give to your website. This may be marketing to realtors. This may be marketing to FSBOs. This may be your follow-up marketing and CRM. This may be the blogging that you need to be doing. This may be social media marketing. This may be paid ads. And it just goes on and on and on. Okay, so there's lots of other things that you could be doing. But here's the thing, is if you were to sit down and say, you know what, it's my goal to knock these top 3 items out today. Or I'm sorry, not today, but let's say within the next 90 days. So you start off with item number 1, and you're trying to be responsible. But as you get into number 1, each one of these little bubbles here is yet another whole layer of the onion. So when somebody says marketing with your website, it's not just one task, is it? Because as you start peeling back that onion, there's so many other things, such as ad copy, copywriting, the blogging elements, the SEO elements, how to make it look good, how to keep it secure, how to make it load quickly, how to make it mobile friendly. All these little sub-tasks fall underneath that primary task that you hadn't even dreamt of. A lot of things that you may not have even known of yet, to where you end up even more overwhelmed. So now you circle back on, holy crap, just this one task. I'm going to have to direct and devote all my attention to this. I'm going to have to completely ignore this, and all of these other items, because this is almost a whole career in and of itself. And the same becomes true if you look at these other tasks. Each one has all these subtasks, and it ends up with overwhelm. So the question becomes, where on earth do I begin, and how do I begin to knock these things out of the park, and so I can move on to the rest of my tasks? And I'm going to show you a really cool way to accomplish that right now. You can accomplish this in just a single day, believe it or not. And this is something that I like to call, what you need is a brain dump, okay? A brain dump. Have you ever heard that terminology before? It's a real thing. Sounds kind of goofy, maybe even juvenile, but it's powerful. powerful, I assure you. Let's talk about what we do. Okay, so here's how we do it. Let me just get my formatting here. Let's justify that to the left. Okay, so I have all these different tasks rolling around in my brain. And I'm doing my best to remember all of these things as well, too, because let's say you've been on, how many webinars have you been on just this year so far? How many webinars? How many videos have you watched? How many blog posts have you read? How many emails have you read? How many social media posts about marketing and the mortgage business have you opened up and read? And how much have you studied how to get referrals from realtors and research what's the best CRM out there? All that other stuff. Guess what you're trying to do as you read all that stuff? You're trying to retain and remember as much of it as possible. But then you get busy, you get interrupted. So you know what you do? You file it in the back of your brain and say, you know what, I'm going to circle back to this in a week or two, and I'm going to reassess it. So what happens is you have very limited attention span, right? You have very limited brain cells that you can apply in a proactive way in any given day. Science has proven that the human brain is limited in its capacity to operate at peak levels of performance throughout the day. And the more tasks you throw into your brain, the less effective it becomes. It's almost as if your IQ drops as the day goes along. And that's not an insult, guys. This is just science telling us that your performance capability drops as the day goes along. That's all of us. Okay, so we cannot be 100% effective. So the smartest thing that we could do is just like with a computer. When a computer starts getting really, really slow as you reach its peak memory capacity, what happens if you go in and you back up a bunch of that stuff on the cloud and then just wipe a lot of that memory? What do is you unlock additional performance and capacity, right? You free up that memory and that performance, that power, to apply it to other tasks. So what we need to do is the same thing for your brain. So what you do is you grab a document like this and you start off with what's the most pressing thing rolling around in your head. Let's say that it's your website, to get your website under control. Okay, so I put down website. Okay, so some things that I know I need to do, make it look better. I need to, I was watching this webinar the other day about having better calls to action. So add calls to action. Oh, I know, I need to add proper lead forms, landing pages, make it SEO friendly, and you just start writing these things down. You're not trying to do these things now. You're just writing them down, and as you put some of these things down, like let's say make it SEO friendly, some other things might pop in my head that are very related to it and very specific to it, so I might make it A, so make it SEO friendly, A, do this, B, do that, C, outsource this and outsource that. So what you're doing now is, again, you're removing this from your head so that you don't have to remember it. By putting pen to paper, I'm making it so I don't have to remember it. And it's a huge load off your shoulders to know that, because there's nothing worse in the world than feeling like there's something super important that you should have remembered but you forgot. Do you know how annoying that is? It's almost panic-inducing when you think you have this wonderful idea and it's like, oh crap, I forgot. Wow, what was I supposed to do? I heard this really neat idea the other day. Okay, so once I'm done with this, and I may fill up just a quarter of a page, I may fill up an entire page on this, but anything, when I say website, anything that pops in my mind, I'm going to go ahead and write it down now. Right? I may put a bunch of little cliff notes here and a bunch of bullet points, anything that pops in my head that I've been trying to keep top of mind. And then when I'm done with that, I move on. I move on to my next topic. So now, realtors. So everything that I've been wanting to do, wanting to explore. So in fact, you may even categorize it as to do, to study, to outsource. I may give it subheadings within each item. So that way I can categorize them. Okay, here's all the things that have been floating in my mind to do myself. Here's all the things I've been meaning to research and study. Here's things I've been meaning to outsource. Here's some cool ideas that I've had, and so forth. Now I've freed up my capacity. So I'm not having to remember all this stuff anymore. And I just go down the line, until you feel that sense of relief. Just get it all dumped onto paper. Handwritten, typed up, I don't care. Then what you do, we're not done yet. So once you have all those notes out there, and now your brain's operating at peak efficiency because you freed up all that capacity. Now what we're going to do is I'm going to look at that and I'm going to force myself to answer the single toughest but most profitable question you could ask of yourself. And that's this. So I'm going to look at my notes. I'm going to go through my brain dump, so to speak, and I'm going to carefully examine everything that I've written down here. I'm going to look at this and say, okay, based on what I see here, which of these items is the single most effective and or efficient ways that I can add more money to my bottom line this month? And I'm going to latch on to just one item, not a bunch. And that's what I'm going to turn all my attention to for the next month, maybe even the next 2 months, I don't know. But here's what happens is we try to tackle all this stuff, and it becomes so overwhelming to look at. When you do your brain dump, you're going to look like, how am I ever going to get to all of this stuff? It's just too much. It's just too much. There's no way. It's impossible. But let me explain to you how it suddenly becomes very possible when you just latch onto one thing. When I say one thing, I don't mean like your entire website. I mean, take a look at one of the subcategories within, right? So let's say, for example, I've been meaning to do a website and landing pages and SEO it and get some paid ads going, make it mobile friendly and all this other stuff. I've just been going, holy crap, that's just way too much for me. So here's what I would do is I would instead do my brain dump and I would look at all these things and I would say, you know what, the single most effective way that I could add more money to my bottom line this month is to turn my attention to running PPC ads and fine-tune them until I get 3 applications in a single month. Okay? So let's say I make that my goal. So what I do is I focus on this to the exclusion of everything else, because here's what happens. Here's the magic of doing this. Is as I do this, as I start getting phone calls, I'm going to get phone calls, I'm going to get email leads, I'm going to be working to follow up with these people. I'm going to be texting some of them. I'm going to be sending some of them to my website, and so forth. Now, guess what happens? While I'm doing this, this is going to expose both my strengths and my weaknesses as I'm doing this. Because now, instead of just looking at a bunch of inaction, I'm taking action, and this action is going to dictate what my areas of importance are in some of these other categories. So instead of trying to take my best guess and decide randomly which of these may or may not be the most important tasks, those tasks will manifest and reveal themselves when I'm taking action. Because when I'm forced to utilize my website, when I'm forced to pick up the phone and send emails and therefore be using my email autoresponder or database and recognize its weaknesses and flaws and so forth in my follow-up process and texting people and what needs to be automated, all of the priorities are going to manifest themselves because I'm focusing on high payoff activities. And those high payoff activities get to be either overwhelming or underwhelming depending on how efficient I've been with my business, right? So I no longer am engaging in guesswork as to what's important and what's not. Instead, I'm letting my business, the flow of my business and my activity and action dictate what is important and therefore what needs to be prioritized. So we're no longer playing the guessing game here, folks. And now I'm going to pay attention to the single most important aspects of my business to the exclusion of everything else. And as I shore up and make these weaknesses now my strong points, guess what happens? My capacity increases yet some more. AKA my business grows, I make more money, but I get even more business now. And as I get even more business, new weaknesses will manifest themselves, and now I work on plugging those holes. And that's how we eventually work our way around this entire brain dump that previously seemed so overwhelming and impossible, now has become very possible. It's now become a to-do list, but one that I go through and prioritize based on what my business reveals. It's self-revealing when you take action, folks. Sitting around in, like the thinking man here, with your chin and shoulder, or I'm sorry, your chin and fist on your knee just isn't going to get you there. You're not going to think your way through this. Action is going to dictate, not thinking. Action is. There's a little bit of thinking involved up front, but ultimately the decision-making factor will manifest itself on its own. Okay? So that's what I want you guys to do is perform this little exercise, this brain dump, and then go through and you select the single most effective way and efficient way that you can grow your business if you were to pay attention to this particular activity to the exclusion of the other items. Just don't let them overwhelm you. Don't even think about them. Think about this. What it is you write down here and commit to, and then perform it. And as you start taking action, you'll start building up your to-do list and knocking out these other items based off of a level of real-world importance. And that's what I want you to do. You're going to grow your business, folks. You're going to find this to be an exciting and powerful way to hit some home runs with your business right now, right this month. Okay? So go out there, take some action, and why don't you come back here and let me know your results. All right, guys, that's it for today. I'll see you in our next video. Make it a great day. Bye now.